Welcome back to MNVA Geography and World Cultures class. We're continuing our discussion today on spatial thinking. This is the 1.2 study 2. It's 1 out of 7 pages. Defining culture. Spatial thinking is not simply a way of keeping track of objects, it's also a part of how people think about other people. People tend to think and act in groups, and each group has its own set of beliefs and behaviors. In other words, each group has its own culture. Some of these cultures vary widely. Others are so close to us that we don't even notice them until we look. Consider this example. Imagine that you are eating dinner, a fancy, formal dinner, in Afghanistan. The food is different, the clothing is unfamiliar, and not only are you unsure of what to eat, you don't even know how to eat it. People are dipping bread into common serving dish and eating. Which hand should you use? Is there a dipping order? There are many cultural rules to follow. In a situation like the dinner party, most people watch what others at the table are doing. By copying them, it is possible to fit in. Even the inevitable mistakes in manners can be excused if it is obvious that the new person is really trying hard. Closer to home, think about the experiences of new students at school. They also have to figure out how people act. Who is friendly and who is mean? What other kinds of games do the students play? What kinds of behavior pleases or annoys teachers and other students? What is the culture of this school? All right, now that we've finished reading page 1, reminder, now would be a great time to go ahead and download the study sheet right here, or if you've downloaded the entire packet from Unit 1 here under doc sharing or from Kmail or the CCs where I handed them out, you can continue filling those out now. We're going to move on to page 2. Culture and acculturation. The adjustments new students make as they fit in at a new school are an example of what anthropologists and sociologists call acculturation. Acculturation is what people do when they're figuring out the social patterns of a group of people they don't quite belong to. Put simply, it's fitting in. Acculturation takes place because members of different groups of people have different beliefs and behave differently than people in other groups. For example, Matakoa, the daughter of Chief Powhatan, lived in eastern North America about 400 years ago. She grew up in Native American society and culture. After she married an Englishman named John Rolfe, she changed her name to Rebecca Rolfe, moved to England, spoke English instead of Algonquin, and traded her deerskin clothing for woven cloth. She acculturated to her husband's group. We remember her today by her nickname Pocahontas. What if Matoaka's story tells us is that we can study culture by observing how people change when they move from one group to another. Examining acculturation is a good way of figuring out what a group of people believes and how it behaves. Page 3. Deviance and counterculture. Acculturation is one way of identifying elements of a culture. There are other ways of spotting out the crucial elements in a culture. For example, think about this question. Are you an insider or an outsider? That question uses spatial thinking, inside versus outside, to describe whether a person is a part of a specific larger group of people. There are several reasons why someone can live in the same space as other people without sharing their beliefs and behaviors. Deviance. The process of defining a group by declaring what the group is not is called a deviance. All societies reject some people, beliefs, or behaviors, but the kind of people who are rejected and the way that societies reject them both change over time. One really powerful way to study a group of people is to make note of who rejects it and why. A common example here, considering a deviant culture, would be criminals or robbers. Those people exist in our culture, but our culture rejects them and their beliefs and behaviors. Counterculture. But what if some people, rather than being rejected, choose instead to reject some of the beliefs and behaviors of the dominant culture? Intentional deviation from the social norms of the dominant culture results in a formation of a counterculture. Despite what the name implies, countercultures are an important part of their larger societies. Countercultures define themselves by challenging issues or problems that are central to the larger society. Subcultures. There are also subcultures, groups of people who ignore some of the larger society's values in order to focus on what they find important. All of these are important parts of a society and culture, and when you study world cultures in more detail later on, you will be looking for deviants, countercultures, and subcultures. Page 4. Cultural studies. The world is made up of diverse cultures. The field of cultural studies is dedicated to describing, understanding the beliefs and behaviors of world's many cultures, subcultures, and countercultures. Students of culture have come up with a set of concepts that can be used to describe all cultures. This set of concepts is also describes cultural changes and includes terms such as acculturation and deviance. There are a few more important terms you'll need to know as you study both on your own and other cultures. This animation will not clearly transmit over the video, so I encourage you to log on to page 4 so you can listen to all the audio of this little animation. 5 important vocabulary words of culture that you will need to know the difference between are social norms, hierarchy, innovation, diffusion, and diversity. If you log on to this animation, you'll be able to hear and see the vocabulary definitions. Page 5, getting a handle on cultural studies. You've just seen a bunch of new cultural terms. These terms are extremely useful, but they can be challenging to grasp. Remember when I said in our very first CC that one of the biggest battles of this class was going to be vocabulary? If you can get a handle on all these vocabulary words right here, you're going to be successful. Page 6. Cultures are full of examples. You've seen some examples of acculturation, social norms, hierarchy, diffusion, innovation, and deviation. The world is full of examples that illustrate these basic terms. Applying cultural terms. Log on right here to page 6 where you can quiz yourself on all the vocabulary. And lastly, page 7, culture shock. What if your new job required you move halfway around the world? The people in your new surroundings are friendly, but the food is different. The manners are different. Even the way they build their bathrooms is different. You might have so much trouble adjusting that you get overwhelmed by all the differences. The confusion and anxiety that come from rapidly changing cultures are part of culture shock. The existence of culture shock shows the power with which our native culture holds sway over us. Our beliefs and behaviors can be so much a part of us that we might not even realize that there are other ways of thinking and acting. What might seem particularly strange is imagining that people from other places would face culture shock when coming to the United States. While everything in the United States might be familiar to you, many immigrants, tourists, and international students find it disorienting. You can learn a lot about culture shock and your own culture by reading what these foreign travelers have to say about adjusting to life in the United States. Here are 2 little articles that you can read about immigrants who have come to the United States and what they have to say. All right, this is a lesson full of vocabulary words, and you can't have learned them all through just this little video. So make sure you log on to 1.2 Study 2 to study those vocabulary words and record them and make sure you've got them down yourself. Thanks for watching.